Sonissima Gloria. I thank you for being here, for subscribing. I'm so grateful for everyone here who has already stood with me here to come and watch this show every morning to know about legal affairs, legal matters, and know your rights. Yes, that's what the show is all about. So I thank you for coming and please stick with me. So the previous episode, we're talking about letters of administration, how to administer an estate of a deceased person. I believe now you know what it takes for someone to administer an estate of a deceased person. Because that time we're talking about the law of succession, what's in the law of succession, and of course we define what a will is. It's the legal document that states the property of a deceased person. It has to state the children of the deceased. It has to state the property that the deceased has, and the executors, the people who are going to administer this person's estate when they're gone. Yes, if you're out there and you didn't know all these requirements before you die, definitely the first question in people's minds will be, okay, how are we going to administer this person's property? How will the beneficiaries gain from the person's property? Remember, we had those scenarios where people die and then relatives out of nowhere, people who have not worked for this property, come and start taking over the deceased property, leaving the widowers in so much pain. You see, you leave your family in crisis. Instead of, again, they're already grieving you when you're dead, you're again putting them in another sort of crisis whereby they have to fight with relatives. They have to now go ahead and look for your PIN codes from whichever bank. Remember, you didn't leave any PIN with your wife, like for her to easily access your money or in their accounts. So they have to go all through the long process of going to court and acquiring all this information so that they can access the money to again administer the estate, to take care of their kids. So today we're going to look further on testate succession. Remember, we defined what testate succession is. This is the succession where the deceased person dies with a will. Yes. So if you're out there, you haven't written your will, let's say you have your one shoe, you have two bags, you have one phone, please, and a laptop. Mr. Amos, just ensure that at least write a will so that people don't fight for your property when you're dead. So today we're going to still focus on the testate succession. It's not going to be as broad as the show usually is, so I'm going to keep it so short and simple so that we can talk more about testate succession. So testate succession, like I defined it, is the succession where the deceased person dies with a will. And a will is a legal document that states the property and of the deceased person and how this property will be distributed. Yes, so for a will to be valid, I told you the requirements. Of course, it has to have a date, it has to have the name of the deceased person, has to state the property, the executors of this will. It also has to state how this property is going to be distributed. Yes, and it has to be signed by the deceased person for it to be valid. Yes, it also has to be attested to. And the people who attest to this will don't have to be beneficiaries to the property. So if you're out there and you're going to attest to a will, make sure that the deceased person is aware that you're not one of the beneficiaries to this will. Otherwise, you will not get anything from the deceased upon his death, from the estate of the deceased upon his death. So whenever you see that the will is attested to, the executors to this will, and it is signed. Yes, and there is no coercion in signing this will. So whenever to make sure that you take all those steps to see that your will is actually a valid will. Otherwise, it will be contested in court that the will is actually invalid, and that will be another process to say, now how do we get letters of administration? Because if a will is not valid, then the family has to sit down and then make minutes of the family meeting. Well, it's another whole process, and that's intestate succession, of which we shall discuss further about intestate succession in the next episode. So in this episode, let's focus on the testate succession. So now the deceased person has died. What's the next step? So what happens is that your family will sit down. That's the family member. Those are the family members. Yes, the widow, let's say if it's the husband who has died or the widower, you sit with your family, with your children, with the beneficiaries. There are people, maybe this particular person adopted and they're also beneficiaries, or people the person was taking care of, they were dependent on him. Let's say they had their mother or any other relative, their uncles. So all these people can have entitlement to property so long as they're mentioned in the will. Yes, the cousins, the distant relatives. Yes, so you have to sit down as a family and then you start discussing on the way forward. So if fortunately this person actually left behind a will, it will be easier because that will has to clearly state who is going to be the executor. The executor could be the wife, because in most cases, if it's the husband who has died, they appoint their wives as executors to these wills. So there is no challenge of saying now, since she's a woman, she can't execute this estate. No. If the will is clear that it's the widow to execute the will, then they have all the authority to go ahead and actually apply for grant of probate. Yes. So as a family, you discuss on the way forward how the property will be distributed. Yes, in case the deceased had some loans, because of which some people leave loans, and all those things have to be stated in the will. It states that now this property will be used to cater for that said will. So in other words, make sure that in case there is a will, in case there is any property that deceased left, and it's not even their property, all that has to be sorted out within that meeting. So in the meeting where it's clearly defined that it's the executor will go ahead and petition court for a grant of probate. So the grant of probate is more like an endorsement from court authorizing you to execute or to administer the deceased estate. Yes. So if you're an executor, of course you get a lawyer to do the petition for you, to draft the pleadings for you. It has to state the date of time when the deceased died. It has to state the property that the deceased left behind, the beneficiaries to this estate. Of course, it has to state all the properties and how this property is going to be distributed. So on that petition for a grant of probate, you also attach the will itself, because this is what the court is going to look at to say, now this is a valid will. Remember, there are some wills which are not even signed upon, or someone has forged a will, because at the end of the day, when you come to court and the petition is actually not granted, or someone is challenging this sort of petition, definitely they have to look at the will. Is it a valid will or not? So you attach the death certificate showing when this person died, of course, even a postmortem report, because someone may kill you over your own property. Yes, that's well there. So Julie, in case such a scenario happens, you have to ensure that actually you attach, let's say the death certificate, you attach the properties, let's say the land titles, of course, copies of those properties. Now let's say the land titles, they have to be in the names of the deceased. Then also the account details, because this person had accounts somewhere, like in Finance Trust Bank. Now, like Mr. Amos, who is a good friend of mine, told me how they have ABSA accounts, DFT accounts. So in this particular cases, your wife is not, of course, you died without giving your wife all the information that comes with the PIN code. So it will be a challenge for her to access this money. So what she can do is to go through all that process of getting letters of probate. Then, of course, the bank, when they see such valid documents, let's say the grant of probate, those letters of probate, they'll definitely authorize her to access all the money you left behind. Yes, people die with a lot of money on their mobile money phones, and you wonder, because their wives don't have access to such information of like the PIN codes or whatever. So the only way they can access this money is to go to the head offices of these companies, the software or the telephone companies. Then they present those documents and be able to access the mobile money. Yes, so like I mentioned in the petition, the particular documents you have to attach. Now in court, of course, you have to state your relationship with the deceased. Let's say you're a widow, you state that I'm a widow, or let's say you are a daughter or a brother or sister, you clearly state your relationship with the deceased person as an executor. Yes, and then of course these things have to be advertised in the newspapers, because you have other relatives. So when you advertise in the newspapers, the other people who are maybe challenging this will come up and come to court and say, no, this person is actually forging all this documentation. People are out there who have faced such challenges whereby people impersonate and come and claim that it's this person's property. Yes, and they claim to be the widows, the widowers. So in these particular cases where they're challenging the will, definitely that's why they have to keep the provision of putting this information in the newspapers so that people can actually come in and challenge, and that goes for a period of about 21 days. Yes, I think you should look it up in the Succession Act. I'm thinking it could be roughly 15 to 21 days, but that could be the period to ensure that, yes, you advertise and let the world know that you apply for the letters of probate. So, our dear viewers, today I talked about the testate succession. I'm now well aware that you know about this sort of law of succession. The next episode, we shall look at the testate succession. Please keep it here on the Legal Matters with me, Councillor Gloria. Bye.
Everyone stand up on your feet. This is a day to celebrate 17 years of existence. So many companies in Uganda fail at the age of 3 years. But YPA, we are counting 17 years down the road. And we are still counting. Mr. DJ, give me some good sound and we dance. Are you there? So, you are going to dance what I'm going to be dancing. Tugobe mpewo. Touch your waist.
You can follow him, please.
Follow me. If you are next to somebody who is not following, ask which language they understand. And remember, we are live on BBS Telefina. So I want to see when your child at home, they are seeing you're not dancing. Okay, DJ, let's do it. Is your neighbor shaking?